haven't even started yet and the cats are already being a problem. Hey guys, it's Katie. Welcome back to my channel and welcome back to a new video. As you can see, we're in a different location today. If you haven't watched my vlogs, you've probably never seen this part of my home. So welcome to my living room. Welcome to my couch. The cats are both right here. You just can't see them. Got wet hair. We're sitting on the floor. It's gonna be a very chill video. Basically, I just wanted to talk about some books that I've been loving lately. Give you guys some recommendations. Have a conversation with you guys down below in the comments. I would love to hear about the books that you guys have been loving lately. And so yeah, let's just get straight into it. I'll have all the books that I talk about today linked down below in the description if you want to go check them out. And this will be in no particular order. We're just gonna go through some books that I've given 4 or 5 stars to lately. So I guess first we should start with this series that I've been binge reading right now. I just finished the 3rd book. I'm planning to start the 4th one very soon. That is the ONJHKY Vampire series by Lindsay Sands. I'm not sure what the actual name of the series is. The 1st book is A Quick Bite. The 2nd book is Love Bites. And the 3rd book is Single White Vampire. So these are the 3 that I've read so far. I think there's like 27 books in this series, so I plan to be occupied for a very long time with these books. And basically it's just a fun kind of trashy paranormal romance series, and I have enjoyed this so much more than I was expecting. I've been saying for months that I've been in the mood for paranormal romances, and every one that I've tried I've been disappointed with, and this series has just been exactly what I was looking for. It's super funny. I love comedic writing styles. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It's very self-aware. The romances themselves are really cute, but I also really love this take on vampires and this world. And so each book actually follows a different couple, and one member of each couple is in this ONJHKY family, which at first I thought I wasn't gonna like. I usually don't like series that like jump around to follow a bunch of different characters. And so I put off reading the 2nd book after I finished the 1st one for a while because I was like, oh, I don't think I'm gonna continue the series then if it's not following the same couple. It's taken me less than a chapter for each book to get into the new couple, so don't be worried about that if you also don't like those kinds of books. So in the 1st book, we're following Lysandra and Greg. So Lissy is this like 200-year-old vampire who has a phobia of blood, which makes feeding for her really difficult. She literally just faints at the sight of blood. And Greg is a doctor and he specializes in phobias. So Lissy's mother hires Greg to try and cure her phobia, and then the two end up falling in love. So that's the 1st book. The 2nd book follows Rachel and Etienne. Etienne is Lysandra's brother, and Rachel works the night shift in a morgue. And so she meets Etienne because he shows up in her morgue twice. He's a vampire, so obviously he wasn't actually dead. And so this crazy guy comes into her morgue with an axe. They're like, get away from him, he's not dead, he's a vampire, to try to kill him, and accidentally hits Rachel with the axe instead and almost kills her. So that's book 2. And then book 3 follows Luke and Kate. And Luke is this like 600-year-old vampire, and he is like a hermit basically. He writes romance novels about his family, which I thought was kind of funny. Like he wrote Lysandra and Greg's story. He wrote Rachel and Etienne's story. And basically he just like doesn't want to deal with people. He's super over it. He has sequestered himself into his house, doesn't want to deal with people, and just writes all the time. Like, hey, hella relatable. And his new editor for his books, Kate, shows up at his house to try and talk him into going on a book tour, and it ends up being a romance between the two of them. So the 3rd book has actually surprisingly been my favorite so far. I think it's the funniest. Like I was literally laughing out loud at some parts during this book. I think all 3 books are funny, but the 3rd one has definitely been my favorite in that category. I've given every single one of these books 4 to 5 stars so far. I've just really enjoyed them. They've been really fast reads. I've listened to the audiobooks for all of them, would highly recommend reading them that way. All of the audiobooks are available on Scribd, and they're just so ridiculous. It's so funny. Like I was expecting kind of ridiculous because they're vampire paranormal romances, but it's literally things like vampire sex is so good that the girl faints every time afterwards. It's just so funny. And basically the mother of this family is like playing matchmaker with all of her children, and so she's finding all of these mates for each of her children. It's just really entertaining. Would highly recommend trying the series if you haven't yet. This most recent one, Single White Vampire, was really amusing because the main character is a writer, and he goes to this book convention, and he's a romance writer, and I feel like romance readers are the most like passionate and enthusiastic just in general, and so you kind of also get a look into like fangirl culture and everyone like freaking out and being in love with this writer because they think they know him based on the books that he writes, and just like as a reader and someone who loves books, so that whole side of it and going into that world was really entertaining for me. Again, these are super goofy and silly, so definitely you can't take them super seriously, but I think they're a fun time. So next, let's talk about The How and the Why by Cynthia Hand. This is one of my favorite books that I've read so so far this year. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. This one does deal with some heavier subject matters, but I feel like it's just such a wholesome and heartwarming book. We're following our main character, Cassie. She's a senior in high school and she is really interested in theater. She was adopted when she was 6 weeks old, and so her mother is currently in the hospital waiting on a heart transplant. And when she's 18 years old, she suddenly gets access to all of these letters that her birth mom wrote her when she was still pregnant with her. And so we're switching off back and forth between Cassie's senior year, getting ready for college, dealing with her family and everything, a very coming of age centered story. And then we see the letters that her birth mom wrote her. So we're kind of getting to see her birth mom, who was 16 when she was pregnant. So we're getting to see her story through the letters. I actually have a whole spoilery reading vlog for this on my Patreon page just because this was our book club for last month. I do a monthly book club over there if you don't know. I'll have a link down below if you might want to join us next month or something. But yeah, this is my favorite book that we read for our book club so far. This is my favorite YA contemporary I've read in a really, really long time. I thought it was hilarious. I was laughing out loud at times. It was super heartwarming. I was a little nervous there that I was going to start crying at some points because it was just really touching. It just has so many good elements for it. We have strong family relationships, we have strong friendships in here. There is kind of a cute budding romance in there, but it's not the main focus. I felt like I was watching like an episode of Full House or something. It was just very wholesome and touching. I really, really enjoyed this one. And it's such a long book too for a contemporary. It's like 450 pages, but it didn't feel that way. I flew through this. I couldn't put it down. Usually when I see a contemporary that size, I get nervous because I'm like, there's literally no reason why a contemporary should be that long. I'm sorry if you can hear Dean playing with this toy back there. It's okay, Dean. I'm not gonna stop you. It was interesting because I really loved Cassie's character and I sympathized with her. The parents who adopted her, like, she had a great life, a very supportive and loving family, and then we see her birth mom through these letters, and her poor birth mom had the opposite experience. She had a family that was not at all supportive. She went through some really tough stuff, so I really sympathized with her, and I actually ended up enjoying reading about both of these characters equally. It was almost like it was two different point of view characters, even though we were only reading about her birth mom through the letters that she wrote her. But yeah, I thought this one was really, really cute. Would highly recommend, even if you don't typically like this genre, because I thought that I didn't like this genre, and it's one of my favorite books that I've read so far this year. On a completely different note, I was going back and forth on whether or not I wanted to recommend this one, and that is Tell Me Lies by Carola Lavering. I read this earlier this year and I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. This is sort of a new adult romance that really focuses on a toxic relationship. So I personally found there to be a lot of triggering material in here, so just go in aware of that it might be upsetting to you, especially if you have personal experience with a toxic relationship like this. But basically we're following Lucy, who is a freshman in college, and she meets this boy Steven, and they start this on again, off again, super toxic relationship throughout their entire college career, and then into post-grad when they're both living in New York City. The reason why I'm recommending this one, or just like why I want to talk about this one in this video, is because this is the book that I've read the fastest this year. Like cover to cover, I couldn't put it down. I was so sucked into it. And even though I found it personally upsetting just because I could relate to the subject matter, it was sort of like cathartic, and I thought it was very well done on the writer's part. It felt like a very realistic portrayal of this situation. So then on the flip side, if you've never been in this kind of situation, you might just straight up hate this book because you'll be really frustrated. Both of the characters make really bad decisions. Both of the characters arguably are really unlikable. Like this guy, Steven, was like diagnosed sociopath, narcissist, could not care less about how his actions affect anyone else. And then Lucy is this really naive, young college freshman who's attracted to this older bad boy, and so she continues to subject herself to this really bad situation and just like never learns her lesson. So that's really frustrating. But like I said, I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. I thought for what it is, it was really well done. I couldn't stop reading it. I related to it a lot. So I think this will appeal to a very like niche audience, but if you're someone that this book is targeting, I don't even want to use the word enjoy because I don't think you're gonna enjoy it per se, but it might be a worthwhile reading experience. I'm really glad that I read it. It was something that I didn't even realize that I needed in a book, because I think it's easy when we're talking about toxic relationships to just sort of demonize one side of the relationship and rally around one side like, oh, he was a jerk, you deserve better, blah, 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 blah. But this one, I feel like it's a more accurate representation of also, yeah, he is a jerk, you do deserve better, but also mistakes are made on both sides. It's a really complicated situation. It's really messy. There's a lot of gray area. It's not black and white. I just haven't read a book like this before, and I haven't read a book that tackles this particular topic in this way, where it's very authentic and honest, even if it makes it unlikable, you know? So then one more book that I wanted to talk about was What Kind of Girl by Alyssa Sheanmel. This is a young adult contemporary as well. I've been reading a lot of contemporary this year apparently. This one again tackles really heavy subject matter. I don't know why this year I've been reading like a lot of harder hitting upsetting books. So if you have any lighthearted, cute, and like fluffy recommendations, please leave those in the comments down below. I could use a little more balance in my reading life. This one follows another senior in high school who is getting physically abused by her boyfriend. And so she goes to the principal's office to report it. The gossip is airborne within minutes, everybody knows. And it's basically a look at how the whole school decides to handle this because they don't really have a precedent. They don't have policies to handle this kind of situation. And a lot of people want to support the girl and believe her, but her boyfriend is also the golden boy. Everybody loves him. He's a track star, and a lot of people want to worry about his future and rally around him. I think it's obvious my thoughts on the matter. So this book was really frustrating to read. It was really difficult to read. Again, it's something that I think is done in a very realistic and accurate way, which makes it hard to read. It's written in a sort of unique format, which I appreciated the creativity there. It didn't quite work for me, which is why I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. So if you're having trouble getting into the format here, I would definitely recommend pushing past the first part of the book, which is like 80 pages. I think once you get into part 2, it gets easier, and then part 3 is my favorite. So if you're struggling a little bit with the first part, push through to part 2 is my recommendation. I think you'll appreciate the formatting more once you've read the whole thing. Yeah, this was a book that was tough to read, but it's also an important book and an important conversation. I think it's done pretty well. I always appreciate books that try to tackle topics like this. I was really hoping picking this one up, I was going to enjoy this as much as The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis, which is one of my all-time favorite books because it kind of tackles similar themes, and I just kind of got that vibe from the synopsis. If you're gonna read one or the other, go read The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis. It's one of my favorite books. I've reread it so many times, and every time I reread it, I like it a little bit more. This one is still awesome, still recommend it. I think if you like The Female of the Species, you'll like this one. But going into it with the expectations that I was gonna like it as much as I liked my favorite book, probably was setting myself up for failure. But yeah, those are all the books that I just wanted to chat with you guys about today. I would love to hear down below in the comments some books that you guys have really enjoyed so far this year. I was looking back at my Goodreads, and honestly, I haven't read that many published books this year. If you don't know, I'm also a freelance editor, so I read a lot of unpublished books for my clients, and that's just taken up more of my reading time this year than I was expecting. I've read, I would say, equal parts unpublished and published books so far this year. So I'm trying to get back into the swing of things and start reading more published books because I miss reading for fun more. So yeah, I would love to see your recommendations down below in the comments of some really great books that I can add to my TBR. But yeah, thanks so much for hanging out and chilling with me in my living room. Let me know what you think about filming over here. After this one, I'm already thinking, never again. Behind the scenes, what you haven't seen is my cats playing in the blinds over there, them jumping on the couch and scratching the couch, playing with their noisiest toys available, wanting to chew on my wires. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys are doing well, and I'll just see you in my next video very, very soon. Bye.
So hit me. So hit me. So hit me. First a confession. With you, I feel a connection. With